So we've been going for around half an hour so far. I just have one or two other concepts to share, but I really do want to open it up for a wider conversation. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you've got situations that where you say, how do I become a better coaching leader in this kind of situation? How do I help my team members become coaching leaders themselves, right? What's on your mind? What do you think? Uh, where can we move the needle today?
Was thinking about just um, directing one-on-ones in a coaching manner. I try to meet with my people, and they a lot of times they redirect into task. And so I'm just wondering about how to amp up my one-on-ones.
Hmm, that's a good question. So how often, Marissa, do you do the one-on-ones?
So right now we rotate weekly, and I have 9 people. So it's about every 2 months, probably.
Okay. So one of the things that you can do, uh, well, sorry, if you're a large organization, sometimes you could do things like 360-degree surveys and to get some macro kind of little bits and pieces, right? So sometimes that is, if you've got 9 direct reports, you may be able to do something of that nature, okay, in the context of that. Um, Another thing that you can do is you could do one-on-ones more often, like on a monthly basis. A number of our clients, for example, do them every 2 weeks. Okay, not big ones, but check-ins. On the check-ins, you could start asking questions like that are more focused on culture, okay, or on interactions, or on leadership development topics. Okay, so sometimes, for example, if like we've got a series that people will sign up to, like an organization where they get like a webinar once a month, and they get an office hours, a week after that, etc. And then there's all these topics and everything. So guess what? The CEO or the executive director, if they knew that the topic of last month's was fill in the blank, okay, they'll ask questions about how the person is. Have you embedded some of these ideas? For me, I like the such and such. This is what I've done. Tell me about you. So sometimes there's structural things you could do to put in place to sort of open the questions. The other thing you can do is you can give them you can give them some pre-warning saying, at our next one-on-one, I want to have a different agenda. Here's some of the questions I'm going to ask. And you can actually, you can speak to some of the cultural and leadership and all that kind of stuff. And if you reach out to me, Marissa, I can give you a list of a half dozen or so questions, and that might sort of spark some of the questions. Excuse me. And just because the fact something is different, okay, may you could even set that up as a special one-on-one. Okay, breakfast with the CEO. Okay, and uh, you know, 9 people, you've got 2 weeks, that's 10 breakfasts. Okay, so
Mhm.
you got one where you could have breakfast by yourself, right? So, uh, so like I think to change it up a little bit, to signal that it's a little bit different, okay, to use external stimulus to sort of help make that happen. One of the things that we've done many times on leadership retreats is we've sort of set up, okay, how do you do one-on-ones with your
Mm.
staff? Okay. And interestingly, the meta program here isn't how to do good one-on-ones with your staff. It's really more about how you could do better with your one-on-ones with your boss, the CEO.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll give you one other idea as well, which is this. What if you ask them, what if you ask them, as perhaps one of the questions, um, what is the one thing that you really want me to know that you don't think I know? I'll also give you I'll also put something else out, not for the one-on-ones, etc. But if you do well, let me just ask, do you do a, half year sort of performance appraisal check-in?
Um, Not really.
Okay, so many organizations do that just as a check-in based on the
Okay.
objectives and everything. It's not a bad idea to do anyway. But what I was going to suggest was, and by the way, these aren't big, big, big things. These are more lots of forms filled out. It's not that, okay? But here's my separate idea from the half-year performance appraisal, objective achievements, check-in, is something called the stay interview. Have you heard of that
Mm-hmm.
before?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to stay? Okay. And you could do a Google search for all kinds of stay interview questions, right? And if somebody says, I'm not so sure, I don't know why, then you can start to ask questions. What do you love about your job? What do you love about the people? What do you love about the mission? What we're really doing here? Okay. Is there something that agitates you a little bit? It's not a complaining thing, but what you really want to do is get out from them. What is it that's so great about why they're staying? Right? Boy, wouldn't that be cool to know that all of your people think that this one thing
Mm-hmm.
is the best thing about working here, about the big impact that they're doing? But wouldn't it be weird if they all said this and you thought
Mm-hmm.
this over here is something completely different? Say, okay, there's a bit of a gap here. Okay, there's a bit of a gap. So I think the idea of doing a stay interview at some point is very powerful because that provides the raw material for better one-on-ones.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. That was a great question, Marissa. Thank you. Let me ask you, what's the toughest thing for you as a leader when it comes to sort of being that coaching leader, that servant leader, etc.? What's the toughest thing that you experience? And maybe I could take a stab at ways of making it easier. If you don't feel comfortable saying it out loud, you could put it in the chat.
Um, I don't know if anybody else wants to go
No,
first,
you
but
go ahead. You go ahead, Christina.
I find it really hard when s- staff feel a sense of entitlement.
Mm,
And I have a really hard time with that. Um, I almost feel like it's, I need you to give me this, but you don't get. Like it's and I find sometimes it might be an age thing. Thanks, Rima. Thanks, Anna. I really feel sometimes that's an age thing. Like I think the time that we were raised, it was like, work was important, loyalty was important to work, like all those kind of values were in place.
mm,
I think um, I'll keep this close to home even. Like I have two children who are in their 20s. They're very different, although I raised them both. My daughter, who's older, she kind of works the way I do in that, like, if I am employed, then I need to give my job my very best, and then because I feel I've given them my best, then I am in a place then to negotiate or have those discussions about how the company feels I'm valued. My son is a little younger in age and maturity as well, but then his I can see Marissa smiling, so I feel like you it resonates. But my son feels, I show up and that should be enough.
yeah, I think I that was so clear. I mean, my kids are spent a number of years as well. There's different attitudes. We talk about Gen X, Gen Alpha, Gen Y,
Mhm, mhm.
but even the difference of 4, 5, or 6 years it can make a difference. So this became very clear to me. So I live on the East Coast. I'm based actually in Toronto, and I was working with an insurance company and the insurance company CEO in California, in San Francisco of all places. And so we're sitting in the office, and the issue of motivating the employees. And he says, I just don't know what to do here. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, I'm from Boston. And Christina, he described exactly what you're talking about. Work ethic and do it and all that kind of thing. He says, I laid down the law here. And then I lost half of my IT department. They said, I'm out of here. That isn't what I want. Okay. And he says it was just a disaster. And I realized that in the culture of where he is at 5 o'clock, everybody goes. Says they work hard during the day, but 5 o'clock, we got to do a push for quarter end. There's none of that kind of stuff just because. So what I would say is there's a couple things. One is the longer term cultural kind of shift that you want to put in place as a leader. Number one. Number two is the recognition of the different ages of the different cultures. Like it's the United Nations, and people are coming from different perspectives. But I think every type of role, when you're hiring for it, some of them need a certain type of people, and some need a certain other type of people. So you want to make sure you can't change your staff like this, and you probably wouldn't want to, right? But it could very well be, and I'll give you an example. Somebody who's in accounting, where there's month ends and quarter ends, it's their job is lumpy around the month end, quarter
Mhm.
end. All of a sudden, it's crazy. Okay, but in the middle, they could take it a little bit easier. Okay, that person is not the kind of person that says, "Hey, 5 o'clock, I'm out." Right? So making sure that, in the medium term that you're hiring for the type of person that you want for the particular role. So now let's just get to the specific questions. Gee, I've got these people that have got different work ethics, different sort of values, etc., to motivate them. Um, I think the worst thing we could do as leaders is to label people as a group. All young people are lazy. Okay. Gee, all fill in the blank are fill in the blank, etc. And if you're thinking about your direct reports, do you have a good understanding of what lights their light and what is kind of like a black hole activity? What are the things specifically for each of your people that will actually motivate them? Right? That's one thing. Number two is what is their preferred communication style with you? I was the head of a board a number of years ago, and I would do monthly check-ins with each board member. Each board member ran a committee and had responsibilities. It was a great board. And there's two people in there. One person, um, she was a people person. And when I did my touch in with her, I knew that I had to spend 10 minutes asking about her family, her kids, and what vacation she's got. I actually enjoyed it. She was just a delightful person, incredibly competent. And after around 10 minutes of that, okay, on to the topic at hand. And if I didn't do that, she would think that I'm an unfeeling leader, that I'm cardboard, that I didn't care about her, etc. There's another fellow, Adrian, I'll call him. Okay, also very, very competent board member. Here's exactly how the monthly check-ins go. Adrian, Randall here. Hey, Randall, what's up? Okay, Adrian, status on project A, B, and C. He'd say, blah, blah, blah. I say, fantastic. We'll see you later. Bye-bye. That was it. That's all he, if I sort of started talking about his kids or his vacations or tennis or whatever else, he'd say, Randall, you're wasting my time here. Right? So what are the things that light people up? Everybody, including all of us as leaders. There's things that give us energy, and there's things that take away the energy. For each of those people that you think might be not have the same work ethic or the same values, whatever, what are the things that give them energy? And what are the things that take away the energy? Now, it's true that some of the younger people, they just need some mentorship. They need to learn about different things, right? So putting that part aside, by the way, it's the same with kids. Some activities give your kids lots of energy and some drain the energy, right? So if you figure that out and then you deal with how you communicate with them, that can solve most of the issues, at least in my experience. Christina, what are you thinking? I'm not talking about your kids though. I'm talking about your team members.
Um, I kind of agree, and then so let me be very clear. I'm very conscious about I'm very respectful of people's time. So we're not an organization that does emergency work. So
Yeah.
typically, um, I don't require my team to work after hours. And if I do see them, I'll always say, because I'm of course working late, so it's always like, please, I don't need you to be working after hours. Please take your time. Um, I'm gonna say my EA is great. Like it's my EA who I have to tell, get off your laptop. But most everybody else in our organization, 5 p.m., they've signed out and they're gone. But I also live on the East Coast. I'm in Toronto today, but I was at my office on Monday. So I was in my office by 7:30, and I'm watching my team stroll in 9:15, 9:30, and then they leave at 5 o'clock.
Do
So
they get their job done?
some of them do. And again, like this is a new team, so most of them are new. And we did not get our job done last year. So if I
Mm,
went by our KPIs, we did not. And so last year, end of the year, I had to have a lot of difficult conversations with my teams going. And you asked about regular check-ins. You asked about doing the halfway mark. Where are you heading with your
Yeah.
KPIs? Check, check, and check. So it's not,
So
it's not I'm unaware that that was happening, but it's like I just can't seem to find. They're all excited when we talk about something new, but it's the everyday that's our bread and butter. So it's nice to do an event here, an event there. They all get excited about that. But it's like that's not what we do. That's not that gets us our revenue. Our revenue is this. So our focus has to be here.
so let me tell you something we do a lot of leadership retreats. We do a lot of team retreats and everything. And one of the things that is always interesting to me, sort of as I prepare for this, is I hear from the leader, okay, the chair of the board, the president, the executive director, whatever the leader role is. We're doing our annual retreat. We're doing a retreat, our biannual retreat, whatever it is, and we need to focus on this. So I say, fantastic. Okay, and our methodology is we'll actually interview everybody who's going to be there. And we ask a whole bunch of questions, what does everyone else need to know? What's the one thing that's preventing you from achieving what your particular goals are? Is there an elephant in the room that maybe as an outsider I consider bringing in? Like I'll ask a whole bunch of questions, and then we'll meet with the leader again. We'll say, here's what everyone said, and based on that, here's kind of what the syllabus, the agenda of the day or 2 days actually is. And very often the leader is surprised at some of the things that we're able to pull out from from the individuals. And so if we're able to say, okay, we've got a culture, or we've got a working style, or we've got a modus operandi of a certain thing, sometimes the purpose of the retreat isn't to do kumbaya or strategic planning, etc., but it's to solve a specific problem. And sometimes the problem that needs to be solved is we've kind of um, moved into a zone of complacency, which is not serving us as an organization and it's not serving us as individuals. And the purpose of our time in the next day or two is to actually explore what we need to do as a group and what we need to do as individuals so that we can actually achieve whatever those goals are. And the idea of sort of the CEO not being, the bad guy, okay, but it's now an external person that says, hey, you know something? Um, and by the way, here's some new vocabulary. Let's all have this shared vocabulary. Let's all agree that this is the way we're going to operate. Let's all agree this is how we're going to be mutually supportive. Let's actually build in some of the accountability mechanisms that don't exist, peer-based accountability, etc. Right? And so, excuse me, very often leaders will use that as a way to sort of change the narrative, change the culture, change the work style, change the, level up everybody into a particular area. And I'm not saying this would work in your case, Christina. I'm just saying that um, very often doing something like this is a way to signal that things have to change because the external environment has changed quite a bit, right?
Mm.
The expectations of the board, for example, if that's how you operate, has changed quite a bit. Gee, there's this financial constraint that's going on right now. Gee, there's blah 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 blah, and if it's not up, if you know if it's not up, it can't be unless it's up to me, kind of thing. We all have to take response. So what the heck does that look like? Okay. And the ideas that people come up with sometimes are just like incredible, right? They're incredible. And sometimes the penny drops. It's like, oh my, I just never thought of it this way. I didn't see how these things were connected, right? I don't think, by the way, taking a 2 hour little snippet of the day and having even somebody like me come in for 2 hours, that's not going to move the needle. Okay, because after that training session, for example, people go back to exactly the way they were, and nothing will have been embedded. There'll be no personal responsibility taken. It'll just be an overlay of knowledge. Happy to come in, okay, but for what you're describing, okay, I'll also say that um, we run a particular exercise sometimes in our retreats that comes from an academic by the name of Min Bassiter, who came up with a innovation and creativity methodology that's used by about half of the Fortune 1000 companies. And essentially, the way we use the methodology is I call it "What if? How might we?" So if we're able to get a group consensus on what that promised land is, that what if could actually be, if we do all this, wow, this is going to be amazing. Look at this. And everyone say, yeah, I buy into what that future kind of looks like. This isn't strategic planning, by the way. Okay, it's like if we achieve all those KPIs, if we're successful in our mission, okay, this is what the world's going to look like. That's one part of it. And the other part of it is to having the group co-create the answer to this one simple question. How might we? What are all the how might we's there? And when people come up with ideas, they tend to buy into those ideas because they're theirs. Okay. And so this is the I think a very fascinating way to say, okay, if we got a whole bunch of how might we's, then maybe there's a couple of those ones that as a group you say, yeah, we're bought into that, how might we? And then it's a question of saying, okay, let's execute. We all have a role here. Is this helpful, Christina?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good, good, good. Angela, Rima, Sana, any particular specific challenges you want to throw out in the last 5 minutes of our time?
Yeah, I just feel like sometimes it's not about the age. Like because I have Gen Z and Gen X, they have the same working habit and working style. So I feel like there's sometimes it's about their personality as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
so sometimes it's really hard. And I find that it's much easier to mentor the Gen Z because they just grad or even they're still students, right? Because they're interns. And then so you can like talk to them as a leader and tell them that what you're expecting for the next meetings or whatever. But if they are the Gen X, I don't know how to like communicate with them
This is a much
because I
longer
don't
part.
want to be like feel like
Okay, I'll give you a clue. I'll give
right.
you a clue. I'll give you a clue. Okay. Um, More open-ended questions and more I wonder if. I
Mhm.
wonder statements. Give that a try. Okay, it's a much longer conversation, Angela, but give that a try, and you'll be amazed what comes out of their mouths, right? And those will give you those little hooks that you could attach yourself onto, right? I'm looking at the time. I want to be respectful of people's time. We've got 3 or 4 minutes. I'm going to give you just one final little concept that I think would be helpful to you. And in a certain sense, certainly, with the work I do with all my coaching clients, it's the question of, for a senior leader, what's your job? And you always think about it in terms of, well, I've got these KPIs. Gee, I got to report to the board. Gee, I got to do this or that, etc. I'm going to suggest maybe there's something else to be added to that list, and that your job is to develop other senior leaders. Because the better you do that, the more time you're going to have to actually do the stuff that only you can uniquely do. And so, if you imagine a triangle, okay, thinking about where you spend your time at each point in the triangle, one part of it is that outward facing stuff, right? Which is, the strategy, the risks, or coming up with these opportunities, or the partnerships, like that outward facing stuff, right? The public face in a certain sense. Um, Another point of that triangle is the coaching. Okay. Helping people cultivate credibility, helping reinforce leadership identities, helping your direct reports manage their teams and manage their peer relationships, manage their external relationships, and coaching them up to the level of capability that you've already got. Excuse me. And the third is what I'll call influence, the third part of that triangle. And your job is also to become a master of influence. Okay. That you're modeling the vision, the mission, the values of your organization. Okay. That you're modeling the culture that you want in your organization, right? Because if you do that, you can more effectively develop the leaders, the coaching, because you're using influence rather than overt authority, right? And you'll be more effective also on your external facing responsibilities as well. So I hope you've enjoyed today's session. There's an awful lot more if you go to the Brain Trust Professional Institute. We've got recordings, about 75 of them or so, of other related topics on leadership and so on. And if I can help in any way, just give me a ring, or reach out to me at randall@randallcraig.com. I'd be happy to have a conversation. Thank you.